Hello my friends, John here, the basic expert, and sorry this video's late. I meant to record this on the day that I recorded my drive-through RPG and Roll20 video, and it's part of being a dad of a 2-year-old and everything, and as well as trying to freelance and everything, you just get caught up and busy. So this video is a little late. I'm trying to get better at it, but things have just been really busy for me, and I feel like work kind of backed up when I got sick a little bit this last weekend. I just was KO'd and just sitting on the couch or in bed just sending out mean tweets at people. So not much got done, not much was productive. But for this video, we're continuing our discussion on Classic Traveler. We're talking about Starship Economics. I rather like economics, and so this is a fun little thing for me as a fan of studying economics. And it doesn't really get into any great detail. It's more just rules of what's going on. One thing you need to keep in mind with Classic Traveler, in my opinion, is it can play as a space opera, but the rules as written as they present them, they really seem to want to funnel players and play groups towards a sort of game where combat is very deadly, where if combat occurs, you better be sure that you have the advantage in the situation, that you are ready for war, and that you know you can win. Surprise is incredibly important in it. You're going to want to ambush people. You're going to want to shoot people in the back. Trying to fight in a straight up fight is suicide for all parties involved, unless you have proper gear and you feel confident that you can do it. But again, it comes down to feeling confident in you and your party's skills that you're going to survive the encounter. So the majority of Classic Traveler really seems to be focused on trade, trying to find passengers, getting them from one place to another. And combat is merely one of those things that can just occur either through hijacking, I think we talked about that in the last video, or some other means of unfortunate events that could occur during travel in space, which is obviously very dangerous. So it really is trying to be that sort of kind of like Aliens in a lot of ways. So you don't necessarily have to go the full-on horror route that Alien went, not Aliens, Alien, where you're just space truckers pretty much trying to get goods from one place to another, and sometimes bad stuff happens. You're out in the blackness and the expanse of space, and bad things can happen, and that's kind of game that Classic Traveler really wants to push you towards. You can run it in other ways too. Like I was running a West Marches game. We're kind of transitioning it to a more traditional, less West Marches kind of thing, because we have a core group of people that are always playing, and the game's kind of been on hiatus, but I really want to get it back to get it going again. I'm looking at using maybe Owlbear Rodeo or maybe Foundry for a virtual tabletop for this game. But I ran a military campaign where the players were military personnel on a destroyer, and they were sent down to do QRF sort of missions, sometimes on the hush hush, to kind of do the dirty work of the Imperium. And you can run that kind of game, but my players quickly realized that combat, because it became a very combat heavy game because of that, combat is deadly, and they need to be sure that they're being quiet, they're being tactical. They have to go in Rainbow Six style, otherwise they're dead. And so just to kind of clarify what is going on with Classic Traveler and how it really is very different. It is in that old school aesthetic that combat is deadly. And I think, for instance, with 5th edition, it's kind of made it so that combat is, okay, maybe fun, but it's not as dangerous, it's not as deadly, and so therefore it has a totally different feel, a totally different vibe than what old school D&D, or what Traveler is, which is even harsher than old school D&D in my opinion, is doing with combat. So let's talk about Starship Economics. So the book here says the operation of starships in interstellar commerce requires an understanding of the economics which governs trade between the stars. Prices and returns on effort and investment are controlled by the supply and demand which exists in the commercial system. Because starships are so expensive, many of the prices in this section are expressed in megacredits, abbreviated MCR. A megacredit is 1 million credits, so you can see how expensive some stuff's going to be. And we're going to get into some things here. So, Starship Purchase. Bank financing is available to qualified individuals for the purchase of commercial starships. After a down payment of 20% of the cash price of the starship is made, the shipyard will begin construction of a specific vessel. Upon completion, the vessel is delivered to the buyer, with the bank paying off the purchase price to the shipyard. Because the bank now holds title to the ship, the price must be paid off in a series of monthly payments to it. You get a mortgage in Classic Traveler. Get ready for some adulting. Standard terms involve the payment of 1/240th of the cash each month for 480 months. In effect, interest and bank financing costs a simple 120% of the final cost of the ship, and the total finance price equals 220% of each cash purchase price paid off over a period of 40 years. In addition, so it's like buying a house. In addition, the bank will insist that the purchaser submit an economic plan detailing the projected activity, which will guarantee that monthly payments are made. Like buying a house, what is your income going to be? Are you going to be able to afford this sort of thing? Unless a character has some form of guaranteed income, perhaps large rents from some property he owns, this condition will generally rule out purchases, at least finance purchases of yachts, military vessels, or exploratory vessels. Subsidies. So, well, one thing you want to keep in mind is that in character creation, you can be given a ship. You can be given a scout ship, which is on loan to you, but the ship or you might be called into service by the scout services in order to perform certain things. That's, I believe, at the discretion of the referee, though there may be some rules involved. I can't remember. We'll probably get to that eventually. Or you can get the free trader, I believe the Beowulf free trader, which is a slightly larger ship than the scout ship, but is more for, like, as the name implies, trading and carrying passengers. And that is a ship where you will owe money on it. If you win it in character creation, you are going to be paying that thing off and dealing with upkeep fees, which we'll get to in a second here. So, another way to get the ship is subsidies. The government may subsidize larger commercial vessels built on type 600 hulls or larger, primarily to assure consistent service to specific worlds. These subsidized merchants are generally assigned a specific route connecting from 2 to 12 worlds of varying characteristics. The route will generally be determined before a subsidized merchant is purchased to allow tailored design features as may be necessary. When a subsidized merchant is ordered, the character himself must make the 20% down payment, with the government assuming responsibility for the payments upon delivery and taking 50% of the gross receipts of the ship while in service. The character is responsible for all expenses and costs of operation. So, the government is willing to give you some money. You have to put 20% down. The government will pay off the rest, but the government is skimming 50%. Got to pay your fair share of the gross receipts of the ship, while you still are stuck with all of the financial operations of the ship and keeping it running. Government only wants the profits. I know some people maybe don't like this rule, but that's what governments do. This is how taxes work. So I'm perfectly okay with that, because and here's the thing too, is you're looking at all this and you're like, this sounds really expensive, John. That's the point. I think in a good role-playing game, you want to keep the players hungry. You want to keep them a little starving. You want to keep them... That's how you get them to go out and adventure and to do things. If they're too rich, they're too wealthy, there's no reason for them to go out and do anything. Really, they can sit, and they're sitting comfy for a while, because what's the point of going out and doing dangerous stuff when we have so much money or gold or credits or whatever it is right here? So that, I think, is part of the... It's realistic, because governments are asshats and will take 50% of what you earn. Obviously, the government's getting the better deal, I think, out of this situation than the player character is. But they are taking up the payments every month for you, so there's that as well. So you don't have to worry about monthly payments, just upkeep. So I think it's fair. It's a fair way of keeping, again, the players starving, hungry, and wanting to get out there and explore and do stuff in the Traveler universe and the Traveler worlds, so that they can go on adventures and they're motivated to do so. Being poor and being in debt is a good way of motivating characters to get out there and do stuff. Subsidized merchants are also subject to mobilization and use as auxiliaries in the event of emergency or hostility. So your ship will be enlisted if there's military action that requires your ship. At the end of 40 years, the vessel is completely paid off and full title passes to the character, but the vessel remains subject to mobilization in case of government need. So, kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of a mix of like being in the, armed guard or like in guard or something like that. So, very similar. So, Starship Expenses. Let's go over Starship Expenses here. There are 5 basic expenses, in addition to the bank payment, if necessary, associated with Starship operation. Fuel. Starship fuel costs 500 credits per ton refined or 100 credits per ton unrefined at most starports. Fuel consumption is based on a formula related to the size of the ship's power plant and the jump drive. So you're going to have to keep your ship fueled. There are rules for skimming like off of a gas giant for fuel, which you can use to power your ship. If your ship is not capable of functioning, as I believe saw in the previous video, if your ship is not capable of running unrefined fuel, there could be some malfunctions. Yes, it will be cheaper. If you're able to skim a gas giant, it will be free, but it could come with some technical difficulties if your crew isn't careful about it, which could make for a fun story. You could jump incorrectly, your engines could fail. There's a whole host of things we went over in the last Traveler video going over this. You have to pay for life support. Each occupied stateroom on a starship involves an overhead cost of 2,000 credits per trip, 2 weeks made. Each occupied low passage berth involves an overhead cost of 100 credits per usage. There is a normal limit of 1 person per stateroom. Traveling couples or groups usually taking adjoining staterooms. Military vessels or chartered ships may be used with a double occupancy system, 2 persons per stateroom, but this requires twice the normal cost. So no hanky-panky in your staterooms, apparently. But it makes sense. Like if you're trying to keep doors sealed, that's an emergency sort of thing. But you want to keep life support in that room. Adding another body in there could mess that up, I guess. I don't know. You can ignore that rule if you want, I guess. Routine maintenance. Annually, a starship should be given a complete overhaul in order to ensure that it is kept in good working order. Such maintenance costs 1%, 1/1000th, the cash price of the ship. I'm sorry, 0.1%. The cash price of the ship. And requires 2 weeks at a Class A or B starport. Those are some of the best starports that you can get in the game, or where they start to get really good. The owner must make provisions for payment of the maintenance fee when it comes due. Crew members generally take their vacations at this time, but must still be paid. So, pay for your crew. Got to pay for maintenance. The ship owners must make provision for the expected loss of revenue while the ship is out of service. You have crew salaries. Crew members must be paid monthly. Non-player characters must be paid using the standard crew salary schedule with suitable modifications for expertise or seniority, generally plus 10% for each level of expertise above level 1. Player characters may bargain for better pay rates, or they may elect to accept worse. In addition, player characters may participate with the owner of the captain and accept shares in the proceeds of the ship's activities in lieu of payment. Characters who take working passage are not paid, receiving passage, room, and board in lieu of salary, but continuous working passage for more than 3 trips results in automatic hiring and receipt of salary. Starship captain is usually the pilot or navigator and serves as owner aboard, drawing his pay from the profits. Not all crew positions are required on all ships, and some ships will have more than 1 person performing the same function. For example, a large liner would have more than 1 steward. And berthing costs. Landing fees, hauling costs, facilities, use charges, and other starport fees are common practice, and such costs must be paid as they occur. The average cost is 100 credits to land and remain up for up to 6 days. Thereafter, a 100 credit per day fee is imposed for each additional day spent in port. In some locations, this fee will be higher, while at others, local government subsidies will lower and or eliminate it. Revenue. So let's talk about revenue. Starships generate revenue by carrying passengers, cargo, and mail. I want to talk about mail real quick for a second. So part of why it says mail is it's taken a very, I think, hard sci-fi thing at sci-fi here, at communication. You can't be light years and light years away and speak to someone as if we are speaking face to face. Communication takes time, and oftentimes the quickest way to get messages across the galaxy is to send mail. Whether it be physical mail or some other kind of thing, there's no quicker way in the Traveler universe than putting mail or putting a message on a ship and having the ship take it someplace to the person that is supposed to receive it. So it takes an almost medieval perspective for it. Like, it could take months or years or weeks or days, however long it takes for news to reach someplace. And by the time it reaches, from point A to point B, the event might be completely over with. If there's maybe a military uprising of some kind at point B, and at point A where the power seat of power is, by the time news reaches that there's been a rebellious uprising to point A, the uprising might be done and the rebels are now in control. They're the dominant force there. That's the kind of world, universe, the Travel universe is. So that's why mail is an important part of interstellar commerce within the Traveler universe. So let's talk about cargo. Starships may inquire at a starport about the number, sizes, and destinations of cargoes awaiting transportation. The referee should determine all worlds accessible to the starship, depending on jump number, and roll for each such world on the cargo table. You should roll to determine the number of major, minor, and incidental cargoes available in the world of origin. There are tables for all of this. Modifiers take into account the world of destination. After rolling for the number of cargoes, roll 1 die for each cargo to determine its size. Multiply the die for major cargoes by 10, minor cargoes by 5, and incidental cargoes by 1 to determine the number of tons in each. For example, if a ship is on a population 6 world going to a population 3 world with a tech level 3 less than the current world, the referee rolls 1 die for major cargoes. He rolls a 4 plus 2 from the table, minus 4 for the low population of the destination, and plus 3 for each tech level difference, giving 5 major cargoes. He then rolls 1 die for each cargo and multiplies each result by 10 to determine their individual tonnages. Each cargo is a distinct shipment and cannot be subdivided, but the ship may accept or reject specific cargoes based on the best fit within the cargo hold. All cargoes are carried at 1,000 credits per ton. Starship owners may purchase goods locally and ship them at their own expense, speculating that they can later sell them at a profit, obviously someplace else. Engaging in some entrepreneurial stuff. It's cheaper to buy a product here on this planet and then do a couple jumps to this other planet that needs that stuff where I can fetch a higher price for it. This is the kind of game you're kind of going to be running in Classic Traveler. Might sound boring, but the exciting part is the stuff in between and trying to make your starship payment as you're traveling through the universe. Passengers. After a starship has accepted cargo for a specific destination, passengers will present themselves for transport to that destination. Passenger table is used to determine the number of passengers desiring passage to the announced world based on the origin world's population and on the destination world's population and travel zone status. Again, there's tables for this. Roll the number of dice specified, 3D to 1D, for example, indicates that 3 dice are rolled and form that total. The result of another 1 roll die is subtracted. So that's 3D minus 1D. Apply any indicated dice modifiers. Passengers will pay the standard fare for the class of transportation they choose. 10,000 credits for high passage, 8,000 credits for middle passage, and 1,000 credits for low passage. Passage is always sold on the basis of transport to the announced destination rather than on the basis of jump distance. Differences in starship jump drive capacity have no specific effect on passage prices. A Jump 3 starship charges the same price as a Jump 1 starship. The difference is that a Jump 3 ship can reach a destination in 1 jump, while the Jump 1 would take 3 separate jumps, although 2 intermediate destinations, and requiring 3 separate tickets to reach it. Higher jump numbers also may make otherwise inaccessible destinations within reach, but for 2 ships of differing jump numbers going to the same destination in 1 jump, each would charge the same cargo or passage price. Mail and incidentals. Subsidized merchants may receive mail delivery contracts, usually as an adjunct to their established routes. 5 tons of ship cargo capacity must be committed to postal duty on a full-time basis. So you own a starship and you're working on the up and up, and you're not a pirate, you have to be a mailman. 5 tons of ship cargo capacity must be committed to postal on a full-time basis. The ship must be armed, and a gunner must be a part of the crew. You have to have those things in order to do mail. Sorry. The Starship is paid 2,500 credits, 5,000 credits per ton of postal cargo area for each trip made, regardless of the actual mail tonnage carried. Such tonnage will not exceed 5 tons per trip. Other ships may be approached to deliver private messages, at times through the ship's owner or captain, and at times clandestinely through crew members. Private mail is usually intended for delivery to a specific point, such as the Traveler's Aid Society building or a tavern keeper, and is generally accomplished by a credit, 20 credits to 120 credits honorarium. Throw 9+ for a private message to be awaiting transmittal, and determine randomly which crew member is approached to carry it. Serving as a carrier for private mail also serves as an introduction to the recipient as a dependable, trustworthy person. So mail's important, cargo's important. These are all ways that your ship can make on the white market. It's not being a pirate, that your ship can make money. Trade customs. Goods taken on an orbit are delivered when placed in orbit around the destination. Goods taken on a planetary surface are delivered when offloaded on the surface of the destination. This custom applies to cargo, passengers, and mail. At any location with a Class A, B, or C starport, shuttles routinely operate between orbit and world surface. One thing to keep in mind about Traveler is not all ships enter the planet. There's like a high port or like a port in space that you often dock at, and then you can sometimes take a shuttle down to the planet's surface. Or if your ship is capable of landing on the planet's surface, you can do that as well. But there are some ships in Traveler that do not break atmosphere. So, typical shuttle price is 10 credit per ton and 20 credit to 120 credit per passenger. Charters. Standard price to charter a non-starship is 1 credit per ton per hour, usually with a 12-hour minimum. Charter price for a starship is computed based on its revenue generating capacity. Starships are chartered in 2-week blocks. The charge is 900 per ton of cargo plus 9,000 per high passage berth, 900 per low passage berth. Owner pays all overhead and supplies to crew. Then we get to this. We've already went over this in the last video, the rules for how to go from interplanetary stuff, which takes really quite a long time. You got these formula here. If you know 2, you plug in those values and you should be able to find the 3rd value relatively easily. So if you know D and A, which is distance in meters and acceleration in meters per second squared, then you'll be able to figure out the time it'll take to go from the origin world to the destination world. Or if you know the distance as well as acceleration, and if you know acceleration and time, then you can figure out the distance. If you know the distance and time, you can find out what acceleration needs to be had for you to make it within those within that time and within that distance. And it does give you, again, we're just going over this again, a table here based on typical travel times for your starship. But I'm not going to go over it again because we went over it in the last video. Here we get to crew salaries. So, you know, a pilot is going to have a monthly salary of 6,000. So that's pilot 1. And again, I believe it said it was a 10% crew salaries, 10% for each level of expertise above 1. So if you are a pilot 1, you are going to earn this much. You're going to get 10% more for pilot 2, 20% more for pilot 3, so on and so forth. Same goes for all of these here. So you got ship revenues for what things cost. Just kind of like an overview conclusion thing. When things are due, bank payment, you need to pay that monthly. Fuel, when it's consumed, life support per passenger and crew, maintenance fund. You need to have money again put aside for when your ship is out of commission in order to be worked on and to be to get that tune up. Salaries for the crew and berthing costs for starports. And then you have typical distances here, which is really cool, from like world surface to orbit, neighbor world. These are just things you can use when you're building the game on the fly, which Traveller seems to really want you to do. There are published adventures for Traveller, Classic Traveller even. A lot of them are really great, but the rules as written in Classic Traveller, to me, really speak to a game where you're rolling on tables. Like, you're literally just characters on a ship, and you're rolling at a starship what kind of passengers are here, what kind of cargo, what kind of mail, and you kind of let the story emerge from what the dice are telling you. That seems to be my perception of what Classic Traveller, the kind of game it wants you to play. Then you got these tables here for the kinds of passengers that will appear when you're ready to depart. Malfunctions. We went over these already, but it talked about them, but it goes over them again here. Again, if you're using unrefined fuel and your ship is not really built for that, you can have missed jumps or drive failures. Cargo, the kinds of cargo that are around. And we get into design and construction, which I think this video is already like 30 minutes long almost. We'll do design and construction in another video, in the next video, where it gives you rules for designing your own ships, because it does give you some basic ships that are the classic Traveller ships, but you can also design and make your own ships as well, and it gives you rules to do so and what the cost would be to players. So if the players do want to if they do get rich, they do get lucky, and they want to build their own ship, or you want to give them a ship, build a ship for them, and give them a ship, and then all the debt and upkeep that comes with that, keeping them hungry and poor, you can use these rules to do that as well. So we'll do that in the next video. I hope this video was insightful, getting you excited about Classic Traveller. That's the whole point of these videos. I love Traveller. I love Classic Traveller. I think it's a great game, and I really want to get back into running it myself after this little hiatus that happened after a few games. But yeah, if you like what I do, check out my Subscribe Star. Supporters at $1 get a dungeon map for like your fantasy role-playing games. You get a dungeon map a week. $3 or more gets you an adventure a month, and $5 or more just means you really like me and I really appreciate it. And when I release bigger products like my rules conversion for Cowpunchers into a sword and sorcery setting, I'm going to give that to you as a PDF for free. Lots of other things like that as well. So check that out if you want to support me, especially if you like what I do. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. I should be streaming tonight. I'm not sure what we're talking about. It's kind of up in the air, and I'm really bad about planning this sort of stuff. But it should be streaming tonight, and it should be a good time, 8:15 Mountain Daylight Time, Mountain Standard Time. So tune in for that. Until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.